So thrilling to me that the board has confirmed you as the next person to carry the torch of leadership at Bethany. Your gifts and ministry have been confirmed and growing, and now there's this new calling. Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and I laugh. I think God's got a great sense of humor, because I never would have seen myself as a local pastor, as a senior pastor. I was in a different space. I was a high school teacher. I ran a business. I worked in the film industry, and then God called me into the church. It's surprising, but it's also, it's confirming. Like, God has been just speaking to Heather and I, drawing us in, and just from that place of intimacy with the Holy Spirit, leading into the season ahead. So it's quite exciting.
Well, I love that you mentioned Heather, but many people don't know you because you've been at North. Your family and your family story plays a significant role in your calling.
This wouldn't be possible if I wasn't buoyed by such a strong marriage and from my kids. From a high school senior to a third grader, 2 sons, 2 daughters, a son in heaven. And I continue to feel like before I can be a blessing to the church, I need to really serve and be a blessing in my home. When God called me into ministry, we were traveling. It was 2008. God spoke just a specific word into the hotel room where I sat praying, where God just, an inaudible voice, but felt very deeply in my spirit, where God said, come and build the church. And then Heather and I suffered a devastating loss, and that was in December of 2008, and we lost our full-term son, Fisher Samuelson, and he was 9 months and some days, and experiencing God's goodness from the mountaintop of the calling into ministry and the devastating valley of holding our son who was not alive, and to see God moving through that all it's just part of the story. It was almost like the calling came full circle of, like, in the good and the bad, in the highs and low, God's goodness carries through it all. And then all the way to leading Bethany North and starting. My friends up there will tell you that that's just part of our theology, like God's goodness in it all.
Yeah, I love that. And you've been shaped profoundly by the valley and the loss. Truly, the right man for the right time. And I said Sunday in conversation with the Green Lake folks, God doesn't have winners and losers in God's will. So what's a win for Bethany is, in this case, a win for you and a win for me. I am thrilled to take a mantle that allows me to focus more on teaching, writing, the outdoor work that I am convinced is appropriate for this day and age and our culture in Seattle.
Yeah.
And to do that in a way where I can come alongside you and work under your vision, under your leadership. I'm thrilled to not be going anywhere. And be part of the story that God continues to write.
What advice would you have for a senior pastor of a church like Bethany? Like, what wisdom would you give?
I would say there's never been a harder time to live in. Keeping Christ at the center will be both your greatest privilege and greatest challenge. When Christ is at the center, he becomes the essential.
So Richard, as we consider the future, what would be your hope for Bethany Community Church in the season ahead? One
of the great joys for me is to say, my vision is to support the vision that God gives you. I really do believe that God anoints a leader for a season, and during that season, that leader's vision becomes the future. My hope has always been that Bethany would shine, not because we're trying hard to make an impact, but because we're healthy. To the extent that we are more like Christ, our lights will shine brighter.
Bethany wasn't a job to me, it was a calling. And this, long before I worked at Bethany, it was just a church we loved. But I'm just so excited about these next 10 years, and I couldn't be more excited to have you here, to have you around, to be able to reach out to lead pastors, to still be teaching at Green Lake, and for you to have space to write and to do the outdoor ministry. To me, it just feels like a great transition.
It's a healthy church in so many ways. One of the things I love about it is that the senior pastor is not an autocrat, not a dictator, but for 26 years, I've been accountable not only to a board, but to a congregation. And so now there's a big moment for the congregation.
The job will be voted upon by the members at the members meeting November 1, and anybody from Bethany can come to the meeting, but members of Bethany Community Church will vote both for our 2 open council position and our treasurer, as well as a senior pastor. And then we will also be gathering that next Sunday, the 7th, for all church worship for only the 2nd time in the last 10 years. So on the 7th will be a time to just worship Jesus together. That is what unifies us, and just to be, celebrating God's faithfulness through it all.
I'm so excited about that, and my hope is that everybody who calls Bethany home participates in that all church worship, and everyone, especially members, come out for that annual meeting. It's a great way too to get oriented to the way that Bethany is structured.
This is a time to lean in, to be praying for the Dahlstroms, be praying for the Sunds, be praying for Bethany.
God always writes a better story in God's time, by God's means, than we could write on our own.
Well, I want to say thank you for your investment in my life, my family, and the church. 25 plus years. It's a legacy. It's an honor to serve with you, and excited for the season ahead.